All right, good evening. Just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Barton Bryan. If you came across this or you're somebody who follows me, a friend of mine, or check out my YouTube channel, The Mindset Forge. Really wanted to take an opportunity here. It is December 1st. That's, of course, kind of the last month of the year. We're starting to think about January 2024. I like to get ahead of things. And I want to start talking about specific things around health, fitness, nutrition, recovery, mindset over the next 21 days, kind of leading up to the holiday, that last week, as y'all are thinking about health, thinking about maybe making a New Year's resolution. I want to give you some opportunities to kind of think about a little bit deeper about some of the aspects of health, fitness, and kind of everything between. So my goal in this is really just to provide some hopefully massive value to you. You could watch. This is going to be on my YouTube channel later. So if you catch the very end of this and want to go back and watch, you can do so. Not a big deal. So it'll be on my YouTube channel, which you can find. But today I'm talking about flexibility, mobility, a little bit of yoga, and how it relates to fitness, strength, and longevity. And so it's a topic that it's really important. Actually, it's a key piece of the overall picture. And before I get into it, I want to tell you a little bit about my personal story, because a lot of people, if you don't know me that well, or maybe don't remember me 4.5, 5 years ago, I wasn't leading myself very well. I had gained some weight. I was almost 250 pounds. Being as tall as I am, I hit it well with some baggy clothes. But as a trainer, being overweight was not acceptable. I was disappointed in how I was leading myself. I didn't have the discipline. I didn't have the habits. I didn't have the things that I needed as a 44-year-old at that time to be successful. And so, of course, I made the switch. I started working out a lot. I started running all the time, just doing whatever I could fitness-wise to help myself lose weight and all that kind of stuff. The point I make in that is what happened to me and what happens to a lot of people that have that kind of aha moment where they start making those choices to be healthy is I started pulling my calf. I got like a calf strain that wouldn't go away. I couldn't run anymore. I was getting shoulder issues from working out. I just think mobility stuff that I wasn't addressing. I was so focused on like lift more weight, burn calories, eat less, lose body fat, all that kind of stuff was so important to me that I was not thinking about the overall picture. And because of that, I continuously got injured, little nagging things. Low back would go out a little bit here and there. Nothing major, but enough to be kind of frustrating. And I know for a lot of people, it feels like sometimes you're working out, you're trying to build momentum, and you get like one of those little nagging injuries, a trap strain, a shoulder bug, or something. It's like you're taking 3 steps back. And I experienced that, and it really slowed up my journey because I really was like, go, 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 go. And I'm like, oh crap, I can't run. I got to modify away from certain movements of my upper body work. And that was frustrating. And I say all that because as I talk about mobility, flexibility, and recovery in the context of this presentation here today, or this live chat, I really want you guys to think about like how important it truly is, and what I personally learned from this, and also what I'm helping my clients and hopefully teaching you guys about why it's important, how to do it well. It doesn't need to be 3, 4, 5 hours a week of stretching. I'm not telling you to add more. It's really like 5 to 10 minutes specifically before you work out, after you work out, maybe on a recovery day that you do some stretching that can really pay dividends in terms of you staying healthy, you building strength and mobility so that your body continues to function at the highest level. One of the challenges with getting older, and if you're in your 40s or 50s or beyond, you might probably nodding your head with this, is our body gets a little bit more like rigid or fragile and just doesn't have that loosey-goosey flexibility, strength. And when you're 20 or 16, you can just jump off the couch and go sprint down the street, and you're probably going to be okay. If you're in your 40s or 50s, you jump off the couch, you start sprinting, you're probably pulling a hamstring or doing something's going to go wrong, right? And that's just a part of this phase of life. When you're after 40, I would say maybe in 45, it just gets a little bit harder, and you have to be smarter because of that. You can't just like, I remember when I was 25, I could just go to the gym and start benching, or go to the gym and start doing pull-ups or whatever. And if you continue to think that way, the injuries show up, little nagging bugaboos kind of show up in your routine, and you're just like, You don't feel great. And you also don't have the full capacity of your strength because your joints are tight. So I say all that to say, let's really dig in here. And I want you, if you're watching this, make sure you like it. If you can share this, get the word out. I want more people to kind of hear this stuff. So if you're enjoying this content, please feel free to share. You can also drop it in a DM, put in the comments, or DM me, put stretch. Let me know that you're listening, and you can even set up a phone call with me if you want to kind of tell me more about what you're up to. So important stuff. If you want more information from me personally, I'd love to set up a phone call. All right. So, the complications are always around you do too much fitness, trying so hard to get that shape back or get that fitness back into your life. And oftentimes the injuries show up. So how do we do that in a way that we avoid the injuries? And that really comes down to starting every workout with some dynamic stretching. And what dynamic stretching means, or even mobility, and that's kind of a big word. If you think about, like, if I'm stretching my shoulder or my chest, if I go all the way back and hold it, then I'm developing flexibility. Like, I'm not moving it, I'm holding it back. Like if I was putting my hand against the wall and stretching forward here, that's static stretching. I'm trying to hold it for a long period of time. I'm trying to develop the stretch in the muscle and the joint. And that's not necessarily helpful right before you work out. When we work out, we want to actually develop range of motion. So you actually want to get blood flow in the shoulder joint, in the chest. So if I'm about to do a shoulder or chest workout, or maybe upper body in general, I'm going to do things like rotator cuff reach. So I'm rolling my shoulders from the side. You can see I'm rolling my shoulders kind of through rotational range of motion. I might be crossing my arms like this, bringing them high and low, developing, just putting blood flow in the joint. That type of mobility and warm up is going to help me just get all those little muscles, not just the big ones that move, but the stabilizers in there, all the little tiny stabilizers that hold the shoulder in place when we push and pull. Those are going to start to warm up, build a little bit of heat. And that body temperature in there is actually going to help you maintain proper form, be fully active in that joint, and be more stable and not get injured. So important when you start working out, or when you go to run, don't just like set your watch on outdoor run and just take off down the street. Like, hey, I'm going to step back here, do some hamstring stretches, do some puncher kicks. Right? Move through range of motion, get the hamstrings moving, do some even like yoga type movements, open it up, build those hip flexors, get things in your body, your torso, your hips to move, so that when you actually get out and you're doing that repetitive running motion, your body has active in the glutes and the hamstrings, in the legs and hips, and all of a sudden you feel a lot more bouncy. And you're like, your body's ready to handle the impact of a run. All right. So that's just a switch. And there's a lot of ways to warm up, and I'm not going to go into every little detail, but what I want to really insist on kind of putting across here is, like, if you're, I'm going to even say 38 and up, if you're in that age, the days of just walking in the gym or walking outside and starting to run are probably over. You might be able to get away with it for a while, but the injuries are going to start to show up if you're not doing dynamic stretching and warming up. And that's that mobility piece. We want to kind of move all the way to the end of the range of motion and then back out of it, right? And then there are actually ways to develop strength and mobility through full range of motion, which you can do with light dumbbells and things like that. But that's more of another section. So by that, understand, we talk about mobility, we want to move through full range of motion of a joint to warm it up for exercise. Whether it's weight training, plyometrics, a sport, going for a run, something like that. All right. So next with that. So as you're doing that, that is going to be super helpful for your warm up. When you're done, your body is warm, right? You finish your workout, maybe 45 minutes, legs and upper body, maybe just some core. Now it's time to do that static stretching. So you get, before you leave the gym or before you finish the workout, stop and spend a few minutes. I'd say five minutes doing some static stretching. What is static stretching? It is the simple, like probably what you learned in junior high way back when you just had to hang down and try to touch your toes and feel your hamstrings stretch. If you do that cold, you don't get a lot of activation because the muscles are tight and cold, right? But when you're warm after a run, after a workout, and you try to get deep into that stretch and hold it for a long period of time, you can really start to increase the flexibility and the kind of the malleability of the muscle, right? If you think about muscle can get really tight and kind of knotted up, especially as we get older. We get a lot of tension points in our hips and our muscles, and also in the tendons that connect to the muscles to the bone and stuff like that. So you really want to be careful to wait to the end and then really stretch. Same thing with yoga. If you think about yoga, if you go into a yoga class, they're going to take the time going through Sun A, Sun B before they get into the really deep yoga poses and the challenging stuff, because they want to warm up your body, which is also why hot yoga can be uncomfortable, but also really great because your body just gets so warm and heated that when you get into those deep pigeon stretch or warrior two or reverse warrior, whatever you're doing, bam, all that stuff really lights up. And you could get deep into that flexibility and develop better and better mobility and range of motion. So super important. And just a reminder, if you're just jumping on here, this really is about the next 21 days. Every day I've got really 4 sections I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to talk about recovery, which is, when you talk about flexibility, mobility, a lot of that's recovery too. We're going to talk about just fitness or strength training, that kind of stuff. Nutrition's a piece, and then also mindset. Mindset's really how do we encapsulate the whole thing? How do we become the athlete, the person who is really disciplined to be as healthy as possible? And the mindset really kind of triggers either the healthy lifestyle that's sustainable, or just being kind of hey, I did it for 2 months and then I kind of fell off. And that's if we don't have the right mindset, we tend to be kind of a yo-yo exerciser, or yo-yo dieter too. You see that too. So those are the types of things I'm going to be talking about today, all about stretching, mobility, and that kind of thing. So next up, so we talked about mobility, flexibility. Really, it has more to do with when you're at the beginning of your workout, you're doing the mobility, moving joints, looking for ways to activate and move, especially think about your hips and your shoulders. These are such important areas of your body to make sure you have not just full range of motion, but activation of the muscles around that joint so that you can push, pull, squat, lunge, deadlift, and do those types of things. So do that in the beginning, static stretching at the end. And then, don't just think about, weightlifting as the way that I get strong. The way that we are strong is because the muscle of the joint is strong and consistently can do a lot through a long range of motion. So I might have very strong biceps, but if I only ever curl here, imagine what happens when that weight comes down past the point that I've been curling, right? So if I'm only doing these kind of half partial curls, but I can do a lot of weight. I can grab 40 pound, 50 pound dumbbells and curl right here. But what happens when I get down here, or I isolate that joint, I stabilize that joint, and I try to do a full curl? How much strength do I really have in this position right here? Not much, not a lot. It's not going to be good. And I have a big risk of injury because I'm never practicing or developing the strength in that early part of the joint. So same thing goes with, if you think about push-ups, right? If I only ever come halfway down and push back up, yes, I am getting stronger in the shoulder. Yes, it is easier to do a push-up that way. Therefore I can do more push-ups. But what are you losing out on? Right? If you don't do full range of motion, then what happens when you do get past that? Is there any strength in that shoulder joint past halfway down? The answer is very little, right? And so you're not actually strengthening your body through the full range of motion. Now, you may not ever want to get, especially if you're older, all the way back here like that. You don't necessarily need to be all the way back, these crazy ranges of motion, but all the way to your chest, where your chest touches the floor and back up. You got to at least be practicing that. Whether maybe you do it on a couch, hands are up higher, your body weight's more, at an angle, so you're not carrying your whole body weight into your hands. Find ways to increase full range of motion, because that's true strength. And that's where flexibility and mobility really help. You can really tap into your ability to have that full range of motion, because your joints are going to be very healthy, and they're going to be able to take on the load of your body or the weights that you're using much more effectively if you're limber and have good healthy joints and good healthy muscles through full range of motion. So that's a key one there. I would say, and this is the thing, like, I talked about like early on, like 4.5 years ago when I was losing weight, I was kind of getting injured because I was doing too much strength training, running, that kind of stuff, and I wasn't stretching enough. And I think I was so, there's a certain, when you decide, okay, I've got to get back in shape, there's a certain desperation that sometimes comes. And nod your head if you know what I'm talking about, right? Like it's, you got to kind of think about, okay, how do I get this? How do I kind of calm myself and make this a lifestyle? And that's one of the things that I coach my clients on. It's like, they're motivated to get weight loss and get healthy and build muscle and all that kind of stuff. But we have to kind of take the desperation, the sense of urgency, pull it back a little bit and say, okay, this is a marathon. Like, I want everyone to be healthy, not just this year or next year, but in the next 10, 20, 50 years. I'm 48 years old, right? There's no reason why I couldn't live to 96, 98, 100 years old. That's half my life, again. So like, if I'm thinking like the next 2 years, why? Like, why am I not thinking and planning and working out for the next 40, 50 years, right? And if I can continue to do range of motion, flexibility, and that type of stuff, as well as strength training and cardio, then I'm going to set myself up to live my best life with strength, with all the things that are going to keep me healthy and keep that longevity as long as possible. So that's a key one. I want that for you too. And so what I'm getting at right now is that what I really mastered this year, and I'm so excited about it, and shout out to Lifetime Fitness in South Austin. They've got awesome yoga instructors. And I really decided, you know what, stretching, mobility, that was cool. I was doing a lot of that. I was getting some good help from a physical therapist friend of mine. Shout out Jonathan Parr. He was helping me with some good ideas, but I felt like I just needed to do more. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to do once a week, I'm going to do a yoga class. And it was hard. I'm being 6'4", muscular guy. Like, I was a fish out of water. And if you've done a yoga class where you look around, you're like, I can't do any of this. That's how I felt, right? And so it was a really humbling thing to be somebody who considers himself fit, but was really incapable of doing 90% of the things in that class that were being asked. And so I just had to humble myself and practice and just show up and just do my best and all that kind of stuff. And it was humbling, but it was fun because I did start seeing results. And what I saw, not just in the doing of the class, but also in what I noticed about everything else in my life, was I was recovering better. I was not getting injured. I didn't feel like I always needed a deload week, 4 or 5 weeks after a strength, doing 4 weeks of strength training. Like, my body was feeling much more limber, much more flexible. And actually this summer I went to 2 times a week. You're going to have a recovery Ashtanga yoga, or like some sort of a kind of more kind of easier class. And then one class that was more like heated flow, where it's very intense, very, very challenging, lots of sweat. But it became kind of a ritual of mine to, like, not just make myself, more flexible, but it really became a part of my understanding of, like, this is how I stay strong. Like, I'm not just strong because I lift weights. I'm strong because yoga and flexibility are a key component to my workout routine. And I do think that it's one of those things where it's challenging, because I think there are people that really like only do yoga, and there are people that only run, and there are people that only work out. And we get a little bit culty with, like, oh, I'm a bodybuilder. Oh, I'm a runner. Oh, I go to spin class, and almost like an identity thing around it. And it's not a great idea, because, like anything, I mean, think about running, like, your arms are doing this the whole time. Everything's happening in this sagittal plane, your knees. And so hamstrings, IT bands, your glutes aren't very active. It's a lot of just, pounding on the joints. And that just, I mean, how can it not lead to some sort of injury? And the first thing they tell runners, especially long distance runners, is like, go do cross training. Go do, get yourself, moving laterally, doing core work, rotational work. Those types of things are really going to help you, develop the overall system and allow you to not get injured. The same thing, me as a bodybuilder, as somebody who loves working out in the gym, adding that yoga component in there has just been like magic to kind of keeping the whole system strong, healthy, flexible, and it's just been a game changer. So if there's a way for you, if you're already working out or you're already doing, some kind of weekly routine around fitness, if there's a way for you to get a little bit of yoga in there, highly recommend it. It will be uncomfortable at first. Prepare for it. But if you do it and you stick with it and you just humble yourself and say, hey, you know what? I don't have to be good at this yet. It'll take time. Like anything that's worth it takes time, right? But if you do it, it will really impact the way your body feels. And there's a mind-body connection there too, like just in how we process and how we go through yoga, that I think is also kind of built in. But that's all about not just recovery and letting the body kind of recover from exercise, but I think just the whole nervous system, the whole flexibility piece. And I mean, if you think about like modern day warriors, the person I think about most is David Goggins, right? Like this guy, if anyone's read his book, if you know what I'm talking about, drop Goggins in the comments or in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. This guy has somehow done things that like nobody thought possible, right? But if you read his book, at the end of his book, he starts having all these injuries. He starts stretching. He starts doing like just hours and hours of stretching. And it is the absolute thing that helps him fix all of his, knee issues and back issues, all this stuff. He finally realized that he had to stretch. He couldn't just will himself through it. And if that's David Goggins' realization, I think we can learn that without having to do what Goggins did, right? Like you got to know it's not just, you can't just be a weightlifter. You can't just be a runner. You can't just sit on a bike and pedal in a spin class every day and expect that to be the thing that makes you completely healthy. There has to be a combination. And I think within that combination, you have to do strength training because we have to keep our muscles strong. We lose muscle mass, as we get older and older. And if we're not doing some sort of strength training, pushing, pulling, squatting, lunging, lifting, hinging, twisting, we're not doing those basic primal movements, at least a couple of times a week, we are going to lose the ability to use our muscle. We're going to then lose our muscle. And as you get in your 50s and 60s, it's so hard to get it back. It's almost impossible. So you have to do strength training, but you've got to partner that with the dynamic warm-ups, static stretching at the end. And I am recommending some yoga in there to really help your body recover and stay very limber and flexible and like really to get the joints and the muscles to really like stay very, very, kind of pliable in a sense. So big deal. And, don't take my word for it. Take David Goggins' word for it because he just had to figure it out at the end of his first book. And I mean, I think he was stretching like 5 or 6 hours a day, every single day for several months to get his body back to where into a healthy state. Now we don't have to do that because we are not so far, in the direction of where David Goggins was, but to do something is necessary, right? We got to do cardio and we got to eat and we got to recover and all those things. So we're going to talk about that all in the next 21 days. So this is day 1. We got 20 days to go. I'll be hopping on these live. These also going to be in my YouTube channel. So you'll be able to like catch up if you missed one or two, or you want to go back and see something that you think might be more interesting. You can do so by going to my YouTube channel. That's Mindset Forge channel. You can also search my name, Barton Guy Brian. You'll find my channel. I got some shorts. I got a lot of podcasts in there. I've got some videos, instructional videos on some dynamic warm-ups, some core strengthening, some flexibility stuff, a whole bunch of stuff that could be valuable to you. So check that out. And of course, last but not least, before I go, definitely drop it in the chat. Stretch, write the word stretch in the chat, or let me know you want to set up a call. Anything you want, let me know. If you have a question about anything I've said today, or you want to call me out, challenge me on yoga, I will take you down. I will challenge you on the yoga thing. But whatever you do, incorporate flexibility, stretching both before and after your workout. And if you can add a yoga class, you will be better for it. Thank you for listening to this live stream. Hope it's helpful. You can find me on Instagram at Barton Guy Brian, on Facebook, most of the platforms, obviously YouTube, things like that. And I just appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful, happy holidays, and I'll see you next time.